and welcome to the system of mind, or the introduction to the system of mind. Okay, what is this, you might ask? Well, this is a presentation of what I have found regarding this system of mind. I think it is an extremely important discovery. I have not been that successful in having a response from the scientists I have tried to get interested in this, but now I go for YouTube. Okay, so what about me, first of all? Who am I? I am a former student of philosophy and history of religion at Stockholm University. Yeah, that's what I will say about me. Okay, so then, what do I mean by a system of mind? Well, I will hold that everything that is not determined by genes in our actions in life is generated through a system. So the question is, what does this system look like and how does it work and so on? I will explain that in later episodes. Here I will just give you the introduction to the system. Okay, so a system is something with a lot of empty variables or empty slots that has to be filled. It is the architecture of a feature of some sort. I will be so bold to compare myself with Newton and Darwin now, since they discovered two systems of their own. Newton discovered the system of physics, Newtonian physics that is, and Darwin the system of biology. So you can look at it from that perspective. That's what I aim to do. I aim to find and describe the system of mind, filling in the architecture of our minds, so to speak. Okay, so it is very obvious that there is a system of mind, and I think that almost everybody will agree on that if they think about it for a little while. So I have some points here that I will make to emphasize this system, so to say. Actions that are not genetically coded are system created or system regulated, is the first point. So, if you hold that all actions in our lives are constructed or are sort of in our genes somehow, that our genes tell us what to do in every specific moment in life, well, then there is no system involved, since it's all hard-coded into our genes. We're just like a computer program doing whatever our genes tells us to do. Now, I don't think many people are of that opinion, and I will try to show, it's not actually necessary to show the absurdity of that, but I will show it anyway. Okay, so genes measured in, if you measure the amount of connections in genes, in our genes, the information in them is the equivalent of about 10 megabytes in a computer. And as we all know, that doesn't make a very interesting or a very good program. It takes a lot more than that. Okay, and the biggest computers around today in calculating capacity counted equals the calculating capacity of the brain. But they're far from as efficient as the brain. They take up like a big house or a block of houses or something, just in the space of these giant computers. So the best computers, the fastest computers that are around equals the brain, counted in the amount of synapses or connections in the brain. So how could a program of 10 megabytes describe what all the connections in our brains would do? I don't hold that very likely. Okay, so that shows that it's not very likely that genes control everything in our minds. And besides that, genes regulate the rest of the body, and it would probably take up a lot of those 10 megabytes. Okay, and just to show some other examples of the plasticity of the brain, which also suggests that there's a system to the brain rather than it being hard-coded by genes. We know that from science that the locations of different centers of the brain are different between different people, and for instance, there's some people that have a problem with one of their brain halves and have had it surgically removed. So they have only one brain half left, but still they are able to function as humans, though they lack a lot of the centers from the other brain half, because the remaining brain half will take over those functions of the missing brain half, and that is called the plasticity of the brain. It's that the brain centers can switch places and so on. And it's not clear from the beginning which part of the brain is going to do what. That's for sure. And they have made even an experiment with rat brain, and they have cut the visual nerve in half. And what they found was that the visual center then emerged in where the visual nerve was cut, in the middle of the brain. So normally in a rat brain and in a human brain, the visual nerve goes all the way to the end of the brain, and the visual center ends up being in the end of the brain. But when they surgically cut the nerve of the brain, the visual nerve of the rat, the visual center of the brain ended up in another place in the brain. Okay, so that shows the plasticity of the brain. That it is very flexible, and I will hold that it's entirely flexible actually. Probably any center of the brain could end up anywhere in the brain. So hearing is not, or language or whatever, could then actually be in some other part of the brain, but convenience makes hearing center end up somewhere near the ears, visual center end up where the visual nerve ends, and so on. So in most people the central of the brain end up in the same places. Anyhow, okay, so that shows that it is not genes that regulate everything in the brain. Okay, this point I will go through in a later episode, the relativity of emotions. Okay, so all learning requires a system. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. I mean, if there is no system, then everything must be there in the beforehand, so that in learning things obviously needs a system. Learning a program that learns to recognize speech or something in a computer will have a lot of empty variables and so on that it fills with information, and that is the architecture of the system, so to say. Yeah, so learning is actually something that always requires a system. In computers and in humans and in animals and so on. Okay. I will leave it at that for the introduction. Yeah, and what I hope is that you will find this interesting or something, because it is very interesting, and it's how our minds work, and it's completely revolutionizing. And yeah, so I hope to see you in the next episode.